Hey guys, it's Lisa back with another video for you for Lisa Wise Designs, and today we're going to get started on making our Christmas in July project. It's called Boho Christmas. If you want more information about this project, just back up one video where I show you everything that you get in your kit, or if you want to pick up the tutorial. And as always, it'll be linked in the description box below where you can pick this up. Love, love, love. I absolutely love the colors in this project. So let's get started. All right, so today we're gonna work on setting up the album. So you're gonna need your cutting guide. You're gonna need one sheet of your cardstock. Then you're gonna need that half a piece of Tyvek. We're going to get to this a little later today, but you're going to need your two 12 by 12 pieces that we're going to put on the front cover. So I chose the one that's called Oh Joy, that's got the poinsettias on the front, and then the one that's called Peace, Love, and Joy, that's the red dot. Put that to the side, and then of course you're going to need your chipboard that's in your project. You have two sheets of 8.5 by 11 chipboard. So you're going to cut those down according to your cutting guide, but you're going to cut 8.5, so it's already 8.5 by 11. So all you need to do then is cut it in this direction. So it's going to be a 7-inch piece, two of those, and one 2-inch piece, just like that. So I went ahead and cut those out. So in the next video, we'll kind of go over more of the cutting guide and what all that means, but we're going to jump right into it today and start on page 2 with the album cover. All right, so we're going to start cutting your chipboard. So once you do that, place that to the side, put that up here, and then we're going to do the binding that's going to go in our chipboard. So into the chipboard covers. So you need one piece of that 8.5 by 11. We're going to cut it down slightly because we need 8.25 by 11. So I'm just going to take 1/4 of an inch off one side. Maybe. I did not cut all the way through. Huh. All right, I'm going to trim it up just a little bit. All right, so 8.25 by 11, and then now you're going to need your scoreboard. I'm going to put it in our scoreboard with the 11 at the top of the scoreboard, and now we're going to go by our cutting guide right here in the middle of page 2, and you're going to score on the 11-inch side by these dimensions. Okay, so let me find my stylus here. I had my stylus I had used since the beginning of time when I've been scrapbooking with the scoreboard, at least 10 to 15 years. It snapped in half on me last week. I was so sad. I got to figure out a way to fix it because it's just killing me. All right, so now we're going to score by the dimensions that's in your cutting guide. So 2, 2.5, 3, 3.25, 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 5 3/4, 6 1/4, 6 3/4, 7, 7.5, 8, and so on. Okay, I ended at 9.25, and then I should have 2 inches left. It's 2 inches over here. So let's see. So I'm going to get my pencil, and so this is 2 inches here. This is Like 1 3/4, yeah. On the side. You could trim this one down to be 1 3/4 if you want them to be symmetric. I just worked around it. I tried to do it the lazy way and just made it work for me. Now we're going to take this binding piece and we're going to flip it over to the back and we're going to number the sections. So I'm on the bumpy side now. And so I'm going to do mine in pen because you're not going to see it once I'm done, but I want you to see it on screen. And we're going to not number the large piece here. We're going to number the smaller pieces. 1, 2, and 3, and then start over. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, and then you should end on the number 2. So this is the 1 3/4 of an inch, and this is 2 inches, and then everything else is either 1/2 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, but we've got them numbered. So the 1s and the 2s are going to be glued together, and that's what we're going to use this 3/8 inch tape for. And then the number 3s, that's going to be your gusset, what's going to give you the room between your signatures on your binding. So I'm at the bottom of page 2. We're going to put this 3/8 of an inch tape on all of the, let's see, number 1s. Yes, the number 1 sections. Okay. I'm going to try and kind of center those between the 2 score lines on the number 1s. Sometimes it's important to center them. Sometimes it's important to go on the edge. Just depends on the application, what you're working on. So this one, it's kind of important to have them in the center because I don't want the paper when we're putting it together to glue so much together on the edges. Uh-oh, oh, that's pretty good tape. Took the hide right off. And number 1 here. Here we go. So you could put this tape on 1s or 2s because those are the sides that are going to be taped together, the 1s and 2s. So that's why we just need it on one or the other, the 1 or the 2. You just need it on one side. Okay. I need a piece of tape over here because my paper keeps trying to come off my work area. All right, so I'm going to burnish those on real well. Okay, so now we're going to be at the top of page 3. We're going to fold on all our score lines. Okay. So I'm just going to flip it over on the front side, or the side that has all the dents in it, and I'm just going to work all of those score lines down. And what we'll do after this is we'll take off the tape backing and we will glue those number 1 and number 2 sections together so that we have on our binding it kind of looks like a fan fold. Boy, I could not get that out. So that you've got parts of your cardstock that's sticking up so that you can glue your pages or your signatures on. This is one of the easiest ones I have ever made, but it holds a lot of pictures, and it's easy to add more pictures to it, but you have to do a little bit of planning ahead to do that, and we'll talk about it as we go. All right, so now kind of looks all crazy, but we have got it folded, and we kind of got those score lines started. Okay. Still at the top of page 3. Okay, I'm looking. Hello? I never can find my tools when I need them. Here we go. Here's my pokey tool. So I'm going to take one of those pieces of tape off, one of the number 1s, and I'm going to fold on the score line so that the number 1 and the number 2 now are glued together. Okay, that. I'm going to burnish. Then I'm going to fold back on the score line. So now the only thing you can see is the number 3. Let's do that again. I'm trying not to use my nails as tools because they are in terrible shape. even though I try to make a conscious effort not to use them, they're so paper thin, they just start flaking off and they look terrible. It's hard to keep them looking nice and keep them, I guess I can't talk and fold at the same time. and keep them painted and looking nice. Toes are so much easier, right? You go get those painted and done, they're good for a month. Fingers, not so much. So all I'm doing is removing the tape off those number 1s, folding them on to the number 2s, and then folding back so that on this side, all you can see now are those number 3s at the bottom. That's the easiest way that I have found to try and talk through this method is numbering them. Because there's so many score lines, it's kind of difficult to get your point across. But once you've done this a time or two, you don't have to number them. You'll know what you're doing. Okay, so this is what you should have left now. And then when you flip it over, because this is the back, now we will take these binding strips and we'll make them stand up here by folding on all the score lines. You should have 6 binding strips for 6 signatures or 6 papers, and that's what it looks like. Looks kind of convoluted, sometimes a little scary when I first started it, but it's really that easy. All right, so we're going to now work with our tie back. So let's put this to the side for a minute. We're going to get out that half a sheet of tie back. It's almost the right size that you need, but I am going to cut it down to exactly what I need. You wouldn't have to. You could use it this way. But for the sake of me going through my wonderful cutting guide that I made, I'm going to make it exact. So you need 4 by 10 and a half. Put that away. So we're going to get that chipboard that we cut, the spine piece, and we're going to add tape to the chipboard, and then we're going to mark the centers of both of these. I don't think you would absolutely have to know the actual centers, but it sure does make me feel better when something's centered up. But on this, you're really not going to see it. You're going to be covering it in pattern paper, so I wouldn't worry too much about it if it's not exact. The important thing is to make sure you've got end-to-end coverage on your tape. I have tried to skimp before and did not work out well for me because the book starts to either start to pull apart or sag. So there's times where you really do not want to skimp on your tape. All right, so I just covered my spine piece chipboard in tape. Okay, I'm at the bottom of page 3. And we're going to mark the center. So on your tie back, this was a 4-inch piece, right? So the center, easy peasy, will be at 2. Let me grab this toward the top here. I'm going to put a mark, and then on the spine piece, go grab it. I'm going to flip it over away from the tape, and I'm going to mark it at 1 inch. Okay, that kind of doesn't have to be exact, but that kind of helps you center that. All right, so I'm going over to page 4. All right, my little trick for adhering things in the center. I like to use a scoreboard, and I like to use what I'm calling spacer pieces of just leftover chipboard. This was from our last project, so I didn't throw these away, but you have some chipboard that's left over that you can make yourself some spacers. You just need a couple of 1 inch to keep on hand. Just 1 inch, really doesn't matter how long it is, and then 1/4 of an inch, okay? So like I said, I cut these last time, but you have enough materials where you could cut these this time if this is your first project with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a scoreboard because I want 1 inch on both sides and at the top and the bottom. So this will give me that because these are an inch spacer. I'm going to put it here at the top. When I put this down and line them up, so you can't really see my line. There it is. It's close enough lined up. And then I put my spacer here. It's going to tell me this is an inch, this is an inch, this is an inch, and that's an inch at the bottom because of the way we cut our paper and by having a spine. Now you could take a ruler and you could draw an inch from the top. No big deal, right? That would be fine too. But this will actually help you line up there. I hope that makes sense. If you can't see your line like me, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line here so that I can see it a little better. But it's at 2 inches. You can always use the grid at the top too. Right. Working on the spine. Line this back up. Basically this is at the 2 inch mark at the top. And so now this is kind of what I have. It's basically 1 inch all around. Okay, so now we're going to go to this other spacer that I have. And it is 1/4 of an inch. No, it's not. It's an 1/8 of an inch spacer. And this is kind of what you need to have some space between the 2 pieces of chipboard so that you can fold your album. If you put 2 pieces of chipboard right next to each other, you're not going to be able to fold it, right? You got to have a little bit of space in between. So this is the easiest way that I have found to do this. I just use that little piece of that spacer. I'm going to grab my Sharpie again. I'm just going to draw a line. You could do this again, like I said, with your ruler, but it's easy since this is already lined up here. I can push this toward the top, hold it down. I know I want like that 1/8 of an inch. Doesn't have to be exact, but you do kind of want it to be basically straight. All right. Let's see where we are. We are middle of page 4. This away. I'm going to put away my spacer pieces. My little one likes to get my spacer pieces. She thinks there's leftovers and play with them. Like, no, 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 no. All right, so now we're going to, the reason I did this with magic marker, we're going to put tape all the way around this, and I still should be able to see that through once we take the tape backing off. Let's see, I have lots of sizes. I'm going to use this one. The really important thing here is to make sure you get really good tape coverage right up to the edge of the chipboard and then right on the edges. And anything else other than that is just all gravy. I do not like that as a tape tear. I like this, which is a stamp block that I've had for many, many years. It fits my hand just right. But I don't know how people just tear it with their fingers because, ooh, that makes my hands sore. Okay, so I started with some bigger pieces of tape, and then I just kind of work my way down in my sizes. Any piece, any size actually will do. This is just a little bit of a time saver. You'll have to let me know if you use a different name brand of sticky tape. This is my old tried and true score tape, but she ain't cheap. Whew. I've seen a lot of new tapes on the market. I've seen scrapbook.com has their own brand now. Another thing that goes missing are my scissors. I have so many pairs of scissors. And that is another thing that my child likes to walk off with. I guess I'll use my cutter beads. all my tape over. So now we're going to remove our tape backing, and then we're going to be at the top of page 5. And we're going to put the 2 sides of the chipboard, which is going to be the front and back cover, onto this Tyvek. Now, where can you find Tyvek if you are new to this? So Tyvek it's kind of like a cloth-like material. That's very, very thin. If you want to buy very small quantities of it, you can pick it up at your local post office. They have Tyvek envelopes. And it doesn't matter if it says Postal Service or anything on it. Doesn't really matter if it's got, like I say, a lot of writing on it, because you're going to put pattern paper over it. You're just looking for that strength that it provides, because it's very, very thin. Man, I can't get this off. So it's not adding any bulk, but it's going to make sure that your project is not going to come apart or tear at the edges, because that's what's going to get the most work out, right, is the edges of this binding. Okay, so now I'm just going to put this in the middle of my workspace. I can still see the edges here that I drew about 1/8 of an inch away. So I'm going to drop these as close as I can get to lining up on that line, and then making sure the top and the bottom match up so that I don't have any gaps when I have my binder or my album open. It's like that. Okay. This way, just kind of line those up, top and bottom, and then try to get this right on that line. Okay, just like so. So now we're going to be at the middle of page 5. We're going to fold the Tyvek down over the corners here at the top and the bottom. I'm going to pull it kind of tight. Push down. Okay, I'm going to work it in. Okay. So it should not tear on you. You should be able to put a little bit of pressure on it. Make those indentations. Make sure you burnish well. Top 2. Okay, there we go. We have got our little album. Now, you can see where I marked up the Tyvek and that magic marker on the top here. But that is okay, because like I said, it's going to be covered in pattern paper. So now we're going to do a little bit more work. We're going to cover the front and back covers with pattern paper. And we're going to cover the spine, and then we're going to put in that binding system that we made. All right, put this to the side with the binding system. And now we need to grab 2 pieces of 12 by 12 pattern paper that we want to use for the front, side, and back of our album. All right, cleaning up, sorry about that. So let's cut the mats. This is what I used for the back and on around to the side, was that poinsettia paper. And then this red and white dot is going to be on the front, and then later on in the videos coming up, we will make this pocket to go on the front. Okay, so the front cover, that red polka dot, like I said, we're on the middle of page 5. We're going to cut it down by 10.5 tall. I usually always cut from the bottom, so I don't have to cut off this binding strip. That's not a binding strip. That's called a branding strip. So I don't have to cut off the branding strip until later. So if you see me cut, I usually always cut off the bottom until I have to. What did I say? 10.5. 7.5. Definitely want to hold on to any of these pieces that we are cutting, because we're going to use every scrap that we can in this video series. I had very, very little left over. And so the back cover, 10.5 tall. And I always, in my instructions, I try so hard to put the first number you need to cut to be not the width, but I said the tallness. For it to be your first cut that you need to make, which is going to be how tall the paper needs to be versus how wide. So if you haven't noticed, I always do try and do that. So on this floral paper, 10.5 tall, the tallness, by 11.5 wide. Don't always do that, but I do try to catch myself. So even this, I think I wind up using somewhere, that little bitty piece that we just cut off. Okay. Back here to our binder. I don't know why I keep calling it that. It is an album. We're going to add tape to the back cover, the spine, and the tie back that's on the front cover. So we're basically going to cover everything except this piece right here on the front. So you can take a look at the picture on the bottom of page 5. If you have one side or another that you want to be the front, now's the time to figure that out. They should look exactly the same. So I'm gonna get some bigger pieces here. I have some real big 6-inch, but I'll tell you the truth, I can't control it. Once I start rolling it out, it goes everywhere. So I'm gonna put tape from here all the way to the front here, where the, I cannot talk, from where the tie back is. Is anybody else experiencing this when you go through the change of life? I had the worst time thinking of words. Sometimes it's the simplest things. They just escape me. It's almost like I'm going through my mental Rolodex in my mind going, what am I trying to say? Where's that word? Who is that person's name? And it's so embarrassing, especially at work. It's like I'm the one that's supposed to know everything. Everybody comes and asks questions of me, and sometimes I just stare at them like, hang on a minute, I'll catch up with you in a second. Ugh. Anyway, I hear that it's pretty common, but I don't like it at all. Like I say, it's getting worse. See that? Even with this like 2-inch tape, I don't have exact coverage, but it is good enough. Burnish that on really well. And I got a little strip here left, so I'm going to make sure I get a piece of tape on that. Let me know in the comments. Make me feel better that it's not just me. Trim that up. Before the next video, I'm going to find my good scissors, my bigger ones. And we're going to be at the top of page 6. I'm going to remove the tape backing. I do have a little piece right here that needs more tape, and that's going to bother me. You could do this with glue, but it's such a big area. I just rather do all my construction with tape. By the time I tape this piece down, glue this down, it's going to be dry over here, so I would just rather do it with tape. I get asked that question a lot. So if we were to do the same trick using those chipboard spacers to get, because we want to have 1 inch all the way around so that we can wrap this, what I usually do on this one is I flip this where the scoreboard is at the bottom. I'm going to need my 2 1-inch spacers, okay? And you'll see a picture of this in the middle of page 6. And over here in the corner, I'm going to put my spacers, and I've got some low-tack tape, purple tape, and I know there comes in a lot of different colors. I got this low-tack tape. I'm just going to tape it together just for the sake of ease, and guess what? I probably wouldn't be the first time that I have glued my instructions to my project. All right, so once you do that, all you have to do is place this up here, right in the corner. So now you have 1 inch on the side and 1 inch on the bottom. So once we place that pattern paper down right on the edges, it'll line up exactly 1 inch on the side, 1 inch on the bottom, 1 inch on the top. So we're working with this floral paper. Okay, make sure you got it in the right orientation, which is going to be at the bottom. You want to have the 11.5 inch. Okay. You got me thinking. No, you don't. Yeah, you do. Yes. Okay. This here. So now you can see it's pretty perfect 1 inch all the way around on those 3 sides, and we didn't have to try and draw lines, which I'm terrible at. All right, so now we're at the top of page 7. I've showed you the inside view. Now we're going to add tape to the front cover. Okay, so I don't think we will need this again. It'll be pretty easy to line this one up once you've got this one on straight. Okay, going to go back to our tape. Flip this around here. And we're going to tape what's left of the chipboard. I ask people all the time, which do they like the most in making mini albums? Do they like the construction part, or do they like the decor part? And I'm always surprised that the majority of people like the construction part, it seems, more than the decorative part. I guess because it is straightforward. Not a lot of picking and choosing, not a lot of brain work saying, which one do I want to go here or there? You're just kind of putting things together. My mother always tells me she really enjoys that part, the construction, and I hate this part. I just like, you can see I just kind of get through this the best I can because I like to decorate. And especially when I'm decorating with you, because by then I usually have my colors sorted out the way I want them to go. I usually have my dimensions all ready to go, so it's much easier than the first time I go around where I'm racking my brain to see what goes with what and what I want to have go where. So the next part of this, at the bottom of page 7, we're going to add a strip of tape to the right side of this pattern paper, and I'm using, once again, 3/8 of an inch right on the very edge, and I'm going to go from the top of the pattern paper to the bottom, and you'll see a picture of that at the bottom of page 7. And also I don't have to stop and take pictures and write down instructions as we're doing this one together on camera, which I find to be a lot of fun that I don't have to do that piece of it. Okay, we're at the top of page 8. We're going to remove the tape backing. Does anybody else keep some of these tape backings in a drawer somewhere that you can have to cover things up when you need to? Because I sure do, especially the big pieces like this one. And I do use them for sure. Now we're going to go back to that dot page that we cut, and we're going to line up the dot paper with the floral paper. We're going to overlap it by the edge of this tape. So the width of that tape is where we're going to overlap it. You shouldn't have a hard time putting these together now. We don't have to worry about if it's an inch off because I've given you the dimensions. And you can just line this up with the paper that's already there. Should be pretty easy. And just make sure that we burnish really well before we flip it over. So now you should have about 1 inch all the way around your project. Yay! We're going to fold on the spine and burnish, so just really easy. We're going to start folding. Try not to break that spine, but it's inevitable. You can see on mine, when you start stretching this paper, the fibers of the paper, sometimes it just cracks, and it's really not you, it's the actual paper itself. All right, so let's finish putting this album together. We're going to fold, excuse me, oh my gosh, I got the yawns. We're going to fold over this pattern paper and we're going to put in our binding strip. So I'm on the inside of the album. I'm at the top of page 9. We're going to add tape once again. And once again, it's very important to have tape right up against the chipboard and to have tape right on the edge of the pattern paper, because that's the places that is going to adhere the most, is going to get the most work out, and you want that to hang on and hang on tight. I have made albums, I've made scrapbooks since my daughter was born, and I guess it will be 27 years this year. Some of those 12 by 12s, you know how we all got started making those 12 by 12 albums? The spines have started coming apart, which is very distressing. So I need to do some work on those. So I'm hoping with these homemade albums that we won't have that problem. I don't know, I guess only time will tell. We just use the best products that we have at the time. You know, the store-bought ones you wouldn't think would give you any issues, but let me know. Mine sure is. Especially if you overpack them and they have that alligator mouth. And whether or not you put those little chipboard spacers in between they used to sell. I wonder if all that stuff's still for sale. I know when last time I looked at Michael's, they were still selling the 12 by 12 albums. Okay. Now we need to miter the corners. So there's lots of different ways to do that, and I've showed this in lots of videos. There's lots of different tools you can get to miter the corners. You can use things that bookbinders use, which is something like this. You can use one of these that comes from Etsy. This is from Darlene by Heart, and she is on Etsy. This is a bookbinder's tool from Colorways Art. This was the very first one I think that ever came out, but this one's difficult for me to use. This is Perfect Trim Ruler. Now, I like this one because this one works totally fine. It's just short here, where this one is just longer, so this is my go-to. If you don't have any of those and you don't want to invest in one, all you have to do is use a ruler, and there's a picture of this in the middle of page 9. And you're going to place your ruler where you're about 1/8 of an inch away. Do it this way. From the corner, and then you're going to cut that little triangle off. And it's going to give you the same thing as this, except this one is supposed to cut it perfectly where you never had those little naked edges. All right, I got to have some bigger scissors. Let me get my Tim Holtz lemon dinners out. You just want to make sure from the edge of the chipboard that you don't cut right at the edge. You leave yourself about 1/8 of an inch so that you can fold it and cover up the edge of that chipboard. All right, let's do corner number 4. There's got to be some way to use these. I'm sure there is. I should use that as a, oh, sorry. I really should use that as a challenge, shouldn't I? How do you use those? Okay. Now let's see where we are. We're gonna fold along sides first. That's just my preference. So what I like to do is take it and kind of start folding it over. Start with the long. Maybe a little difficult while you've got the backing on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the liner off the tape. Just gonna kind of roll it up on the bottom, get it started, and pull it. Now this is very important. We need to create some space in here because this is, you know, pretty thick cardstock. You don't want to roll it all the way to the top here and just lay it down if you could keep from it. What you want to do is you just want to start on one end and you pull up and over slightly. Just like that. Okay. You're not really going to see it, but that's what I'm doing, is pulling up and toward the center of the book ever so slightly. And you'll see the book kind of start puckering up on the edges. Okay. Then I'm going to start here and do the same thing. I'm going to pull up and over toward the center of the book ever so slightly, because you want to have a little bit of space right here to give you some space to tuck down into the spine area. Okay. So I'm kind of finish off right here and see how I've got like a little pucker right here, ever so slight pucker. And that's what you want to see. You see it right there. Really good. So from here, what I want to do is now I've got it all the way glued down from here to here. You can see my fingers. Now I'm going to start in the center of the spine and push that down. And see, I've got these little pucker areas. So I'm going to kind of work those toward the spine and then push those down inside to give myself a little bit of room there. Hope that makes sense. We're going to do it again. All this is glued down. The center of the spine is glued down. I'm going to start working my way toward where the spine meets the cover. Now I've got a tiny pucker right there. I'm going to push that down into the spine. That gives you a little bit of room, ever so slightly. A little bit of room. That helps you not to have that tearing in the center, and hopefully helps not to have the cracking on the back. We'll see. I've been doing this for the last 2 or 3 albums, and I think it is helping. Can't hurt, right? Okay, so I just flipped it around. I'm doing the long side again. You take it and just ever so slightly start bending it where the top catches on the chipboard. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to start from the edge. I'm going to pull it up and slightly toward the center of the album. Same thing on this side. I'm going this way now. Now I've got this glued from here to here with my fingers. Now I'm going to do the center. Okay, and now I've got this little bubble here. So I'm going to try to work this way right over to the top of the spine and then push it down in the spine. If it doesn't work the first time, it's not a game changer. I just think that is going to help us in the long run not to have warping or cracking the spine. Now I'm just going to kind of work the edges here, make sure I got a good stick. I'm going to pull this up. This in the center. This is my bone folder. This is an ergonomic bone folder. This is my favorite one. You can get it at bonefolders.com. And I also have this one. You can get this one at bonefolders.com, or May Made It has these. I like to shop small when I can. All right, so let's see. Whew. We are now on 10. We've only got, we're going to go through the middle of page 11 and we're going to take a break today. So we're now at the top of page 10. We're going to move the tape backing off the right side. Okay. This is also an important step coming up. If I can get the liner off here. We're going to push down the tiny corners into the tape, and that's going to help us prep for folding. So right here you can see there's this tiny little triangle between the chipboard and the piece of cardstock, and I push it down into the tape. So here it is right here, just this tiny piece off the side of the chipboard, and I just push it down into the tape. And that's going to help us have a clean fold when we fold over. And by coming 1/8 of an inch away when we mitered our corners, that's what's giving you this little piece that's covering up the chipboard so that you don't have naked corners. I've had a lot of naked corners in my life, and I don't like it at all. This short side, you can just fold over. You don't have to make that little space in the center. Just fold over, go to the sides, push down. So you should have pretty much even corners here. No naked edges, no naked corners, people. Nobody likes to be naked. Okay, again, we'll make sure we push this down. It helps us fold in a second. Just kind of start working that toward chipboard and burnish really well. Let me clean up a little bit. So then I like to take it and stand it on its end and make sure I'm burnish and push this page down onto the chipboard really well, kind of flatten it out. Okay, and fold. You don't want to fold it all the way down because that is going to crack it, but you do want to fold it where it's in this position. Okay, so far so good. No cracks in my paper. Not going to say that it's not going to happen, because between the videos, what I like to do is I like to put a book or something, not too heavy, but something that will hold it in this position until I come back to it to start helping the fibers of that paper loosen up. You can also get these large, just the clips that's like on a clipboard. But of course there's no board, just the clipper. You can get these on Amazon and clip it together and leave it like that overnight. That's what I've been doing here recently. That was a fun find. Okay, one more step tonight. We are going to put the binding piece that we already made on here. So grab that binding piece. Okay, I'm gonna, let's see, are we gonna tape first? No, we're going to make sure that we know where center is. So we're going to lay the binding out on the top of that inside spine. We want it to be about 1/8 of an inch from the top and the bottom. So just make sure, you can eyeball it, but it should be about 1/8 of an inch. So just get over the top of it and see if you like the placement of it, and just draw a horizontal line. You may not be able to see mine, but there's my horizontal line there. So I know now when I go back to it, it needs to butt up against that line. And then when we lay it out, we want to have, I'm not going to put it all the way to the top because I need to be able to see my spine right here. So I'm going to kind of lay this out. So I want to have about, I don't know, is that 1/4 of an inch on both sides from where the first and the sixth spine, I don't know why I can't think of words. These little binding strips are, the first and the sixth one on the edges. You can kind of see those. So you want to make sure they're in the middle here of this spine piece. Okay. So once I kind of like that they're kind of in the middle between the spine, I'm just going to kind of draw a line. Just going to make sure they're straight. On the sides here, because like I said, one side is thicker than the other one, which may not make sense, but it did to me when I was doing the cutting guide. So now you've got a drawing or a pattern where you want to lay these back out. So then I'm going to do a dry run. I'm going to place this back down up to the line I drew at the top and the lines on the sides, and just kind of see, does that make sense to me? Does it look like it's in the center? Is my binding pieces, falling into the spine just right? Okay. This is my right side. Just gonna make sure I made a little note of that. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to my big tape. I flipped it over to the back, and now we're gonna cover it in tape. Make sure you've got end-to-end coverage on this. This is another mistake I made when I was making a book for myself one time. I decided, you know, maybe I should just put tape around the edges and leave the centerpiece where the book can where the binding can kind of pop up with the pages, and maybe my pages will lay flatter. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that, you know, seem like something that you would want to try out? Well, that didn't work. Did not work. What wound up happening was, once it had the weight of the pages on it and the pattern paper and, you know, all the ephemera, and then of course the pictures, it just kind of started coming apart. So much for that, but that's how you learn. If you don't experiment and try. So I didn't cry about it. It was made of tape, so that means I could use undo to get the rest of it off, clean it up, and then I just added tape all the way around it, and I put it back together. Nobody will ever know. All right, so now I'm going to take the liner off. Go back and make sure, because yep, I had it flipped around, and make sure my little R is over here on the right side. Make sure I kind of line this up where I wanted it. Uh-oh. Did I not get it where I wanted it? Let's see. Oh no, it's good. See, I got myself all scared. So here it is. It's not pushed all the way down. So the one thing you just got to have is you got to make sure that these 6 little binding pieces are in the center-ish of the spine. They don't go over, because you need to be able to take this book and hold it, right? Mine's off just a little bit, as you can see right here. I don't think I'm going to redo it though, because it's still pretty centered. So I'm going to make sure as I go through here, probably should be using my bone folder since that's what it's made for. And believe it or not, I have absolutely gotten a paper cut from doing that before. You think I would learn. So I'm just going to go through here and burnish really well. And then once again, we've got to work the spine for this last piece, this binding, and that should be the last thing that goes here in our spine area. So while I'm folding it, you can see where this is starting to pucker up. I'm just going to make sure that I lay that back down. That's why you need end-to-end tape coverage. You need to make sure I've got tape on that. Start working it and try not to make my spine crack. So this is where we're going to leave off for today. I hope you're enjoying the process so far. I promise the next time is going to be so much more fun, because we're going to get to decorate, and that is where the fun starts. And I love to see pictures of how everyone puts theirs together, and especially how you decorate differently. I had my Granny Dot bring her book to 4th of July, where she did the Fresh Air album and showed me how she tweaked her decorations, and I loved it. I was so excited to see how she personalized it for her. All right, guys, we will see you back here. See, this is Wednesday. I'll see you back here on Friday, and we will continue to work on our, what's it called? Boho Christmas album. I was going to say a Hobonichi. I knew that wasn't right. Anyway, thanks, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.